Okay, so today we're talking about money. And as I was listening back to this episode, I definitely wanted to say throughout it, I talk a lot about how amazing it would be if we could all just disclose exact dollar amounts and how that might change our relationship with money. But I wanted to say before we got into it, I totally get why disclosing exact dollar amounts is not always the safest move, and that, maybe something we won't be able to do. Just wanted to say that before we began today. So, without further ado, welcome to Vibes Revealed,
a podcast dedicated to pulling back the veil around wellness with your hosts,
Taylor McKiska
and Jay Tollett.
We believe living well is for everyone,
and no topic is taboo. Join us on our journey as we redefine what it means to be truly well in a modern world.
We're celebrating everyday magic,
but always keeping it real.
Let's vibe. Okay, we're back. Episode 6.
We're literally back for the second time today.
Yeah. We're going to have a real moment of transparency here.
We're pulling back the veil.
So we went to record this episode this morning. And okay, before I get into that. Yeah. So today we're talking about money. We're talking about money stories, whatever that means.
Whew.
And
whatever that means to you.
Yes, which we would love to know. Also,
yes.
If you have a definition for money stories, throw it at us. We'll get into what it means to us and see where that lands. But we tried to record this morning. We talked for a full 2 hours. Great combo, all over the place. And
all over the place.
I think we both just had a lot of feelings to work through before we could come at this in any sort of, I'm not even saying I'm going to be level-headed now, but I feel a little more prepared than I did this morning to actually have this convo.
I guess this is good. Also, full transparency, we never come into these conversations with a plan.
Yeah.
And that proved to be a huge problem this morning. We were like, oh shit, we just opened up a can of worms that is just completely unmanageable. So we had to break it down. And so we're back this time with a plan.
We have a little outline here. So you might notice this, it may be our most organized conversation yet. We'll see.
It just might.
We'll see. I'm not making any promises about that. Yeah.
All right.
How are you feeling otherwise? Like, what else is what's going on for you this week?
Okay, since we talked this morning, I actually had a session with my coach. I had an initial session. So it's the first session that I've done with her in this container. We're working together for 6 weeks. And it was like illuminating. I did some inner child work, and hot damn, I had a breakthrough. I had one of those breakthroughs, and I was like, oh shit. Like, something that happened to me in kindergarten still is just up in my psyche. So yeah, I think I have a lot to work through this week, and just coming back to inner child work, but inner child shadow, not the inner child fun shit, but the inner child like, ooh, she's wounded. It was a wounded inner child moment, and it was very necessary. And I don't think that I would have been able to get there had we have not had our first money story conversation, where I was just like, oh, fuck, I need healing around this. So yeah, I think this week is going to be a really good week for healing, inner child, money story, all of it. Yes. I feel it coming. How are you?
I'm great. Also, during our break today, I'm in the midst of my Reiki master teacher training. So I had my master teacher attunement last week, and today was just my second day of studying. I practiced giving an attunement, a Reiki attunement. So that was really lovely. Reiki is, we can definitely do a full episode on what that is, but it is just such a lovely healing modality. It's energy healing. Yeah, but I think it was really nice. So that's what I did during the break. I had my second class after my attunement, and I'm feeling ready to dive in.
Yeah. Okay, so card of the convo.
Let's do it. Let's do our card of the convo. This is going to be something we can ground into, something maybe to kind of set the tone for our conversation, something to keep us on track. We have this lovely outline here, but I think this card is really going to anchor us into this money conversation. Oh, this is lovely.
What is it?
It's Six of Wands.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you, Six of Wands.
Thank you, Six of Wands.
Yeah. Okay. So, as our anchor for this conversation, we have Six of Wands. We are being seen as we are. I think too that's a really there's such a feeling of reciprocity in all of the sixes to me.
Mm-hmm.
It is that like you are getting what you've put out. You are being seen just as you are, especially in Six of Wands. You're being seen and celebrated just as you are, just as you intended, just as you meant for it to be. So when we recorded this episode the first time around, I pulled the card of the combo. We got like Knight of Wands reversed, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're in for a disaster. Not that like I don't want people to think Knight of Wands reversed is a disaster card. It's not at all. But I was like, okay, we're gonna really have to be patient, reel it in. It's so funny. I was like, we're gonna have to slow down, and it's like that's exactly what we did. We literally like took a step back.
Oh my god,
slowed down, got organized, came back to the conversation, and then it's like, here you are, seen and celebrated.
You've achieved. Oh my god, yeah, fully. Whenever I see Six of Wands, I think, oh, I achieved it. Like that's what it's like. I'm just like, oh, achievement. And I do feel like we achieved something by moving through a 2-hour, not fruitless, but definitely just like all over the place conversation. And we tried to reel it in several times, and we were just like, oh shit, like we're just gonna have to come back at it again. So here we are, we're back, and we're gonna do it.
Yes. And I think that this is also just wanting to affirm right now. I think affirmation is huge in Six of Wands. I just want to affirm the validity of all of the complicated feelings that may arise around money. And I just really want to affirm that for like anyone who's listening to this, whatever you are feeling, whatever comes up throughout this conversation, like I know this is so wellnessy, buzzwordy, but like I see you really, and I am like really, really, truly, we are really, really, truly holding whatever comes up for you and just like wrapping you in so much love with just like, we see you. We feel that whatever comes up is totally, totally valid.
Wow. I like am so moved by what you just said, and I felt seen. And yeah, it is. It's such a hard conversation, just as shown by the fact that we literally had to come back for round 2. So like it's tough no matter where you're at, no matter where you fall on the spectrum, no matter if you fall into a category that I might display some type of animosity towards, it's only because my own story has got me fucked up. So like it's totally fine. And we really see you and hold space for all spectrum and wide range of feelings and emotions that come up when we talk about money. We recognize that people don't like to talk about money for a reason, and that's why we wanted to have this conversation.
Yes, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Okay,
round 2.
So
what does money story mean to you, Taylor?
To me, a money story is kind of the culmination of experiences and demonstrations. Things like how money was talked about in your house, when you first became aware of money, when you learned the cost of things, maybe when you got your first job, like all of those things I would consider part of your money story and how that evolves into how you feel about money today, into how your relationship with money has grown as you have.
Yes.
So that's what I think of when I hear money story.
What I think of when I hear money story, I mean, I'm just going to lay it all on the line. I have a super fucked up money story. And I like kind of what you speak about the history of your relationship with money. But I definitely think of money, I think of it less as a story and more of it as like a very intimate relationship. You have, no matter if you like it or not, a very intimate relationship with money. We all do. And when we talk about money story, when coaches talk about money story, I immediately think like, oh, I'm in a, kind of a toxic partnership with money. And so like, I think we can all kind of look to our money story much in the way that we look to romantic relationships and say like, like, do I honor this do I honor money? Do I see value in money? Do I let money dictate who I am? Like, there are so many questions that come into your money story that relate directly to a relationship. It speaks to like a long-standing relationship that you're going to have through your whole life, just by nature of the fact that we just live in society. So when I think of money story, I think of like your money, my boyfriend money. Here's our relationship story.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a money defining moment, or like a moment that you realized that either like you needed to make money or you wanted to make money, or anything that happened that you were like, okay, this is like, I'm not playing Monopoly?
I don't have quite that moment. I do have what I can trace. I have a very fraught relationship with money and my money me and like when I think of my relationship with money, I think of money as like my weekend booty call, this super hot guy who's like kind of into me, and like I'm kind of into the fact that he's into me, but then I like reject him hardcore every day of the week except like one. Like my it's such a toxic relationship, and I think a lot of it stems from the way that I grew up. I grew up in a very affluent area, and I considered myself like very well off, very well to do. My mom was a doctor. She was a single parent, so it was a little bit different, but just the amount of wealth that I grew up around, and then going to a college where I, that was just magnified. Like I thought that I grew up around rich kids, and then I went to college, and to see that level of wealth, I always had this idea in my head that like a lot of money wasn't actually a lot of money, you know? And I don't think I realized until maybe pretty much when I was done with college, I was like, oh, this was not normal. People do not live like this. Like this is it's crazy, you know, like some people can't even dream of like the level of wealth that was just kind of like flowing through the hands of the 12 and 13 and 16-year-olds that I grew up with. So I think that experience from my youth of just seeing a lot of money, I was like, oh, that's not that much. I think it's now like colored the way I view money even today. And so it's created a weird thing because now I'm much more conscious of the fact that like money does not grow on trees. But I think for most of my youth, I was like, money's just available and around, and it's no biggie. So I think that's kind of that's a big part of my money story that should be unpacked. It will happen in the years to come. It's not happening today. We accept that.
Yeah, that's for sure. For sure.
What about you?
I think I had almost the completely opposite experience of that, where it wasn't like I didn't grow up like really, really poor, but I definitely grew up in a place where the cost of living was a lot lower than it is in California. I grew up in Indiana and Missouri in the Midwest, and I was aware from a super young age what things cost. I knew how much my tennis shoes cost. I knew how much our school supplies cost. I knew anytime I got anything, a sweater, a pair of jeans, I knew exactly how much it cost, and also how that might affect my family. Anytime we got stuff, it was an occasion. But that's not to say like we were fine. I always had a roof over my head and food on the table, and I'm super grateful for that. But it was the stuff like I knew other kids went on vacations to Jamaica, and like we didn't go on any vacations. We went to Florida a couple times when I was a kid, and we definitely did not fly anywhere. So I think that was kind of I was very aware of what things cost. And I watched both of my parents work super, super, super hard. We were always like, went to aftercare, and like we didn't have someone who could just like pick us up when school was over and then we went home. Like my parents always worked until 5 or 6 p.m. and then I got picked up from school. So that was always kind of, I had this example of like, you go to work, you work all day, and then you get home, and that's the thing. That's what you do. So yeah. And then once I moved to California, I was like, oh my gosh, I had never experienced an amount of wealth like I saw when I got here. And that was confronting a whole new thing, because at that point too, it was like, my family kind of went through their stuff, and money was not an issue at all. And, I was able to move across the country with the help of my parents, but I had never been like $200 on a dinner, or like we're going out for drinks and all of that kind of stuff, until I moved here. And it was like everyone and their mom drove a brand new BMW and like, somehow paid their rent. So
somehow.
somehow that's always the question to me. And like what I want to ask people all the time is just like, how do you pay for your life? Because I don't know. Yeah, I think when you live in a place like LA, or when you live in any big city, probably you have that feeling of like, how much stuff costs here, and you're like, how's everyone doing it?
I often wonder that. Let's talk about money within the wellness space, because I think that
Yeah.
it all kind of factors into like what we were saying, the history, how we grew up, what our background is. And I think there's a conversation in the wellness space around healing your money story. And it's a very much like pull yourself up by the bootstraps and change your future. Like you have the power to rewrite your money story, which, yeah, sure, on some levels we all do. But we have to think of how we're like the lens through which we're writing this story. A lot of the wellness world is like invest in your wellness. That's the industry. Invest in bettering yourself. And the problem becomes, if you're not willing to invest that money, then it must mean you don't care about yourself. When maybe the conversation should be, if you don't have the money to invest, then maybe it's okay to just, take care of your bills, take care of your rent, and like if you
Yeah.
can't afford the rest of wellness, then that's on us. That's on the wellness practitioners to say, hey, I recognize that not everyone can afford can pay $25 for a yoga class, or I'm sorry, but Pilates classes are like $36. Like, that's wild. And there's just so many things in the wellness world that just cost so much money that they're just prohibitively expensive. And then wellness becomes a place that is completely inaccessible. And I think that's what we've been talking about this whole podcast, just being like, oh shit, there's a lot of shit that's not accessible, whether that's through language or through pricing or
Yeah.
availability.
Yeah. I think what gets me most about the whole cost of wellness is like, even right now, like when we talk about the cost of it, or when we talk to other teachers and healers, practitioners, even like people who make products, wellness products and things like that, like I feel very unclear about the dollar amount of things. Like I can look at someone's prices and know what they charge, but I have no idea where that came from, how they got to that number. And also, I feel a lot of the times, like as wellness practitioners, we don't always talk about what we spent to get that certification, or what I invested, what I put into getting this job in this place. And I think that goes across all industries, is there's just not a lot of talk about like, what are the actual numbers here. And like, yeah, just it's like, this $25 yoga class is expensive, but it's like, well, that might be covering the cost of the teacher, the cost of the person checking you in, the props in the space, the people who clean the space, the products it takes to clean the space. And I feel like there's just kind of a cloud around the breakdown of the numbers of the whole industry. And
Right.
since we aren't talking to each other about like, how much did you charge and how did you get to that number, we all are just kind of like, I don't know, is this worth it? Is this too expensive? If it doesn't cost a certain amount, is it even good enough?
Ooh, that's a
You
thing.
know,
Yeah.
what are we talking about when we talk about money and wellness? And when
Okay.
we talk about healing your money story?
Okay.
Yeah. Like, what are we saying when we say you need to heal your money story or rewrite your money story?
You know what we're talking about. We're talking about a few things. We're talking about abundance. We're
Mm,
talking about lack mindset, scarcity mindset.
yes.
And there might be one more thing, but those are definitely things that come up in the wellness space when we're talking directly about healing your personal money story,
Yeah.
not kind of like the way you move about capitalist society, which capitalism has its own money story that like
Oh, yeah.
we're all implicated in, but that's not our story to hold.
And I think that we both feel really strongly about this. Like when you talk about abundance, you're not necessarily talking about money. Like you're not talking about money at all. You could be abundant in so many things. And I think that a lot of times is what coaches especially are trying to get to, is like they want you to feel abundant in the gifts that you have and abundant in everything you're capable of. And also just that a lot of times we are really abundant in resources or opportunities. But I think a lot of the times the way that that is presented to us is like through money.
Yeah.
So it's like they want to get to all of the like, you are abundant and it was within you all along. But the way that they do it is like, I'm going to teach you how to make $50,000.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like sometimes the intent isn't even there to be like, oh, it is about abundant resources, abundant time, abundant love. I think sometimes, especially when money story is at the heart of the conversation, it really is about making money. And there's nothing wrong with that because we live in a capitalist society where making money is imperative to meet our basic needs, to feel safe, to feel fed, to feel healthy. There are so many things involved with us being able to have and spend money, you know? And so
Yeah.
I think it's okay to come into a coaching relationship and say, I'm here to teach you how to make money, because that is something that we need. But I think the problem with money story often, at least for me, who, you know, needs to heal her money story, but I just don't like the idea that the story of me, of my prosperity, of my ability to move throughout the world, I don't like money to be a main character in my story. And that's kind of like what I feel. That's why I have such a negative relationship with the idea of a money story, is because I'm like, I don't want to make money the hero of my story and my journey, the story of Jay. And yet it seems like it needs to be. And it seems like a lot of the wellness world is trying to make it a main character. And I'm like, ooh, how can we move away from that, divest from the capitalist model, talk less about putting money in the bank account and talk more about exchanging energy, which a lot of people claim money is just an energy exchange. But I'm like, no, money is currency. Money is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, it honestly kind of rubs me the wrong way when I see someone list a price as energy exchange. And like, I get like, yeah, money is energy, but also like, you're right, money is currency. This is like, I'm not exchanging energy for your service. I'm exchanging cash. I'm
Yes.
exchanging a dollar amount. If it was an energy exchange, we would just be exchanging energy.
That's exactly what I think. Because I'm like, no, no, no. The energy exchange was me giving the coaching and them giving me gratitude. That's an energy exchange. You know what I mean? The money is on top of that. It also cost money for us to exchange energy. That's to me
Yeah.
what it is. So
Yeah.
I get really tripped when people are like, you know, money is just energy. And I'm like, no, no, no. Money is a fake construct that we made as a society to represent value. We're like, hey, this
Yeah.
fake piece of paper or this credit card that puts fake numbers out into the world represents value in this society. So I'm like, let's not get it twisted. Money, exchanging services for money is an energy exchange, but it's an energy exchange that costs currency.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely didn't purely exchange energy if I paid $30 for it. But
Right.
I think that that is, I mean, definitely a lovely way to frame it. And I also, it's like, I get that money is fake, right? Like it's not real. It's not like, it's not a real thing. And everyone could decide tomorrow that like, we're not going to use money anymore. But unless my landlord also decides that it's fake, like my rent is paid in dollars.
Not energy.
I would absolutely love to pay my rent in energy. If my landlord decides tomorrow that we can instead have an energy exchange, I'm about it. I will do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But until then, I think it's okay to just say like this is the cost.
Right.
And like
Right.
even if we are exchanging something that doesn't feel as tangible, even if we are doing an energy exchange, it's okay to say like yes, and the energy costs this much. At least I know
Yes.
then.
Yeah, fully. And then, okay,
Yeah,
so
but
then let's talk about scarcity mindset and lack
yes.
mindset.
Because I was going to say, I bet if there are like, especially money coaches like listening to this, they're going to be like, they are just living in lack mindset. I can like hear people coming for me right now being like, oh,
I hear it.
wow, the lack.
Okay,
I mean,
first of all,
I don't think we're living in lack. I think I think we're fully living in like, I feel like I'm living in abundance.
I feel like I'm living in abundance.
Yeah, I'm like, I have everything I need. I've got food in the fridge and a roof over my head, and like, I'm good. But yeah,
Fully.
obviously, could I have and want for more? Absolutely. But I don't think that us feeling this kind of way or having this conversation about money indicates like lack mindset.
Right. Okay, we'll talk about lack mindset. I think
Yeah.
in the coaching, I'm talking from my sector here. In the coaching world, I feel like lack mindset is often used to, how do I put this? To shame. I don't want to say this, but I'm saying it. The term lack mindset is used to shame people who can't afford to invest in wellness products, wellness services. You say, oh, I really want to do this 10-week course, but I don't have, I don't have $3,000 to invest in a 10-week coaching course. And they say, don't make your decisions from lack mindset. If you do this, then the energy will come back to you tenfold. The money will come back to you. As soon as you are willing to invest in yourself, the money will find its way into your lap. And I'm like, look, I'm not coming from lack mindset, but I'm just saying that might not be true, especially for someone who is in debt. Yeah, if money falls on your lap, it goes right out the other end for you to continue paying down your debt. So it's not always about lack. It's more just about, sometimes it's about pragmatism. Sometimes it's about budgeting, which are two things that I wholly do not align with. Like, I am not saying that I am the girl who budgets and who like looks at her bank account once a week, because like, not this girl. But like, still, I think that it's pretty damaging to throw the term lack mindset around to make you feel like you're making decisions because you're thinking about all that you lack. That's not always true. Sometimes what you lack is the main deterrent from what you're able to do. And that's about accessibility. And that's on our industry as coaches. That's not on the individual. It's not the individual's responsibility to get their minimum wage paying job to pay them more so that they can afford coaching. It's like, it's kind of on us to be like, look, I recognize that you're doing all you can, but you're working a job that just doesn't pay that much. So because you're in that situation, I'm willing to work with you on this. And you don't have lack mindset because you can't afford to choose coaching over putting food on the table for your family. That's not even a thing.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing about lack mindset is that it's like you can this idea that you can just like fully change your circumstance with a belief is like, if I know that this gets into like one of the like core things of manifestation. It's like, if I believe it, it's true. And I feel like with money, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
There are lots of other things I can like will into existence that if I believe it, it's true. Enough money to pay my bills is not always one of those things.
Yeah.
And it's like I can speak it into the universe as much as I want, and I could invest in something that could make me more money, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that like we do a disservice to each other and to ourselves using a term like lack mindset, when if someone actually needs a dollar amount, we have to be willing to hear that dollar amount and say like, okay, I'm going to meet you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And like,
totally.
I'm going to really honor that you just believing it doesn't necessarily make that dollar amount happen. And that doesn't make you any less worthy of receiving this coaching. Or like, even as a coach, it doesn't make you a less worthy coach to adjust your prices for an individual who is seeking your services. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean you're undervaluing yourself or your service. And I think also like, yeah, maybe we won't be able to do that all the time. Like, we won't always be able to lower our prices, but it doesn't make you any less worthy to do so.
I like that you're bringing up this. I'm going to bring up value worth money now, because I feel like it flows right into this.
Yeah.
And I think, something that we've talked about together is the problem that arises when we equate value, worth, money, and then mix in self-worth into that equation. And yes, things hold value. A plastic cup is less valuable than a glass cup. That's just, what it is. I'm looking at a plastic cup and a glass cup on my desk right now, and that's why I said it. But then we have this idea that we can tie money to worth and we can tie money to value. But that just doesn't work when we're talking about the self. Like you are an invaluable person. Taylor has no dollar amount that, makes Taylor more or less worthy, more or less valuable. But I think especially in the coaching industry, we start to have this conversation around money and around money story and around money mindset. And it immediately ties to how worthy of a person do you think that you are? Therefore, how much are you willing to spend on yourself? Or therefore, how much are you willing to charge for your services? And it's like, no. It has nothing to do with how worthy of a person you are. What we'd be better served to look at is how valuable are my services? What is the value that I see in my services? And then you can say, okay, I think that they're valued at this much. But for a person who just doesn't have that much money, it's not that they're less valuable. We have to continually adjust value to meet what the service is worth to the individual. So then, yeah, the conversation around value and worth changes, but what doesn't change is like our inherent worth, the worth of us as people. And I think by trying to tie money story and money and worth to our self-worth and how we value ourselves, that's where like the damage gets done.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing to separate. I think especially right now in like such Capricorn heavy times. I'm so glad we'll have like our astrology friend next week. But
yes.
I think when we are in this, like, we want to be productive and we tie productivity to work and we tie it to how much money we make from our jobs. And then for so many of us who just lost our jobs, that feeling of like, well, what am I worth now that I don't feel like I'm a productive part of society because I'm not going to work? It's like this really wild cycle that kind of ties it all together when it doesn't necessarily have to be tied together. Like you are still fully who you are no matter what job you're working. And even if that job is really aligned for you or if it's not, that doesn't make you any more or less you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's very, I think it's a long road to untangle. Like it does not happen in this conversation. It doesn't happen in 20 conversations. It may be just like a super long journey that we try to untangle ourselves from our productivity and our work and how we tie that to our value.
That comes with dismantling capitalism. That is a function of capitalism. Tying our worth and our value to the dollar amount that we make is a function of capitalism. Part of healing the money story of America and of the world is to divest from these capitalist models that seek to apply the value of a human, apply a dollar value to the value of a human.
Yeah.
So I'm reading this book. It's called The Body is Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor. We both follow her on Instagram. I'm literally obsessed with her work. She talks about divesting from capitalism. She talks about, breaking the ladder of bodily hierarchy. She's all about radical self-love. And in this part of her book, she talks about detriment buying. She talks about detriment buying versus, hold on, let me look up the other name of it. Best interest buying versus detriment buying. So best interest buying is when you're buying for your best interest, buying to make yourself happier or give yourself more radical self-love, basically. But then she talks about detriment buying, and I think this quote is super helpful. I'm going to read the whole page because I think it gives good context. But she said, "We know we're on an island of detriment buying when our honest inquiries about why we made a purchase show us that our motivations are more closely connected to our beliefs that we are somehow deficient or unworthy. Detriment buying leaves us feeling numbed out and disconnected from our bodies and our world. A great way to distinguish detriment buying from best interest buying is to ask yourself, do I truly know I am no less worthy without these purchases? Am I buying this because it is an addition to the fullness of my already divine existence? Or is this purchase an effort to fix some presumed flaw? And if I think I am flawed, where is that message coming from? Who told me? Why do I believe them? I feel like that ties into the conversation about worth. Are we buying things because we think that they add to our worth? Are we investing in college, in law school, because we think that will somehow make us more worthy? Or are we doing it bring us joy?
Yeah. To go back to kind of that like Six of Wands, like, does it see you as you are and celebrate you? You know? And I think it does make a difference, kind of like instead of tying a dollar amount to worthiness, if you are having an exchange, it's like, does this exchange see you in your fullness, in your wholeness, and celebrate that?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what that quote was about. And
I
I
think
feel
that's
like
really beautiful.
I think at least it's a pledge that I want to make as a coach. Like, I never want to have a client come to me thinking that they lack something that I can give them. The purpose for us together is to discover and excavate what already exists within them. So like I feel like I have to make the pledge as a coach to say, if you're coming to me thinking that you lack something, thinking that you're not good enough, thinking that you're not beautiful enough, and thinking that I can make you feel that way, then maybe you need to do a little more work before we can begin to work together. Just I can't in good conscience prey on your belief that I can give you something that you don't already have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that is something that just like, I can't imagine what all industries would function like if they had that sort of thing. If as healers or coaches, we took that mentality of like I'm not giving you something that's not already there, I think the whole industry would be different.
Yeah.
I think that there is in both categories, and when we're talking about like abundance and when we're talking about scarcity, the thing that is missing a lot of the time is just like specificity. And when we talk about money and when we talk about how much we spent on things or how much I spent on this program or how much I charge for this program, like we kind of talk about the numbers, but when we talk to each other one on one, like we don't really talk about the numbers. Like we're not out here telling each other what we spent on stuff. And I think if we did, we would find we are all in a much more similar place than we know.
Yeah.
And I think too that it would not that it would halt the judgment that we have towards each other for spending on certain things or not spending on certain things, but I think like we could come to a better understanding of why we feel the way we feel about money if we talked about how much and where and why.
Transparency.
Yeah. There's a lot of judgment around the way that around what other people do with their money and where they get it from and how they get it, what they did to earn it. Like we all have a lot of feelings about each other's money.
Yeah. And we put shame on ourselves.
Yeah.
People are putting judgment on us, but there's often so many times where I think I can't pay $200 for that, but it's something that I want. And not because I feel like I lack anything. It's something that I truly believe will bring joy into I think just like what we're willing to spend on ourselves, you can't, no one can tell me what's worth what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not even the coach. Like they can tell me what I need to pay, and I'm like, okay, I guess I need to pay that. But like to me, I choose what it's worth. I'm like, you put any dollar amount in front of me, and if I really want it, I'm going to buy it because I know that for me, it's something that I need to feel good, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you should give the thing about how you originally wanted this podcast to be all about money. I think that's a
Oh,
very,
yeah. So when I first had the idea for a podcast way back a long time ago, I originally wanted it to be all about money. And I wanted to talk to all different people who work all different types of jobs in all different places, because I think that we do get really stuck in I know I do in LA. I get really stuck just thinking like, how is everybody a millionaire and how are they affording all of this stuff? And I don't have a huge range of people who make a totally different amount of money than I make, either much more or much less. And I think that that's something we're all missing, is like, we don't understand where anybody else is at because we don't talk about it. But if you knew exactly how much your mail carrier makes and what their health insurance costs and how much it costs to pay for their housing, how much it costs to pay their bills, how much it costs to pay for their family to live well, I think we would all just have a lot more compassion for each other. Because as much as we want to pretend like money doesn't exist, and a lot of times I wish it didn't, and I wish it was something that I didn't ever have to think about, I think that does us a disservice. And I think that it really bypasses an experience for someone who, like, money is a struggle. And I know I've had a lot of points in my life where, like, all I've thought about is like, can I buy groceries this week? Am I going to be able to pay my rent? Is that check going to bounce? And that's a rough feeling to be in. When I feel like when you're in that kind of place, it's hard to even imagine, like, talking about energy exchange. I'm like, I just hope I can get groceries, you know? And I thought that, like, if I were to have this podcast where we all got to talk really openly about money, we just understand where people were coming from.
I love that.
And, like, what's a really real money fear for me or for someone else might not be for another person, and vice versa.
Yeah. When you first told me about that, I immediately was like, no. Like, because I'm definitely the person who does not like talking about money. And I'm gonna, like, I should lay this out here so that everybody knows that, like, I don't really have a problem with scarcity mindset. Like, my relationship with money, it's very interesting in that, did I say this at the top of the episode? Money just falls into my lap when I need it. I have always had the experience that right when I think I'm at the brink of financial despair, I just come into a large sum of money. Someone, tells me about a new job and says they can hook me up, and I get a new job immediately 2 days later, or like, I've literally had, like, random checks come in the mail being like, oh, we accidentally had this money. Like, I literally received a check from a job like several years before, one time in LA. Like, I think last year I was like, what? I got a $400 check from, like, an old job. Like, it really happened so much in my life that, like, when I need money, it shows up. And I'm like, that's weird. So my relationship with money is, and I do think of it like a relationship like that I have with a boy, because these are most of my relationships. I'm like, you use me, I use you. I don't particularly have any affection for you, but, like, I like to have you around and you make me feel good when you're around. But, like, I also, like, sometimes just want to fully reject you and tell you to get the fuck out of my space. And then, like, sometimes I go and flirt with poverty for a little bit. And that's my relationship. So it's not so much that I'm coming from this place of, like, oh, like, money was never around. I never had money available to me. Like, I was always very supported by my mom, by my family. Like, I never truly lacked. I never thought, or right when, in the moments when I thought I'm not going to be able to pay for this, money would arrive and I could pay for it. But I also recognize that that's not sustainable. That's also why I'm, like, living with my mom during quarantine, because I don't have, like, a sea of savings that I kept to, like, be able to just, like, go rent an apartment when times got tough. Like, I'm not someone who's safe when times get tough because of my relationship with money. So this is to say, everyone, like, we all have some weird shit going on, and it doesn't matter where you came from, or, I mean, it does kind of matter where you came from, but we're all going to have something weird going on, like, in this story and in this discussion.
Totally. Yeah.
But I totally forget what was I about to talk on before. I just wanted to, like, I wanted to preface the fact, but then I totally forgot what we were talking about.
There's a lot to say about money and a lot of feelings about money, and it's just complicated.
It is complicated.
You
Even
know?
second time around, it's still
It's just
complicated.
complicated. Yeah. We're doing our best.
So let's talk about how much money we make. Oh, you know what I was going to say?
Huh.
I was going to say, because you were talking about how you wanted this to be a money podcast.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, shit, I hate talking about money. And my hate for talking about money has nothing to do with the fact that I've, like, fallen on hard times and I'm living in squalor. It's really just, like, I have a fraught relationship with it. And I think a lot of us feel that way despite where we fall on, like, the level of affluence, level of privilege, wherever we fall. It's just uncomfortable to talk about money. And when you first said that you wanted to talk about money, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. And that's why I realized, like, we do have to do this. And when we're bringing wellness to the people, there's a huge conversation around having money to be able to be well, as in having money to be able to meet your basic needs.
Yes. It's just important to me to talk about it because it's something I'm so curious about, especially living in a place like this. I'm just like, how are you paying for your life? Like, are you paying for it? Are your parents paying for it? How much are you making at your job? Like, so I'm just like curious about other people's money situation. And if they did make a lot of money or they did get themselves to a really financially stable place, like, I'm like, how'd you do it? Like from just a really honestly, genuinely curious place. Or when you see these wellness companies kind of like rise up out of nowhere, I'm like, who paid for this?
Yeah.
Like when you see
friends and family.
yeah, exactly. When you see like a 22-year-old founder of a company, I'm like, how, what happened? Not like, and I don't feel like, oh, I'm so resentful of this person. They got a handout. I feel like truly, genuinely, how did you do it?
Yeah.
I think that this is also kind of a piece to untangle because then that brings up something in me that's like, well, even me being curious about it is being invested in capitalism. But I think it's like worth talking about because, like I said, whether we want to believe we are or not, it's where we're living.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, our plan is moving forward to have a segment on this show called Full Disclosure. And every guest that we get on here, we're going to ask, how much money do you make? If you started a business, how'd that happen? Like where did the money come from? And I think that's a fair thing to ask because, I mean, coming from my perspective, and this is a privileged perspective, but I think the perspective could be had from someone just looking in and not even receiving the privileges to say, does money grow on trees for some people? Like, is that just a thing? And it is a thing for some people. That's a different life. That's a different money story.
For sure. Yeah. But I have just a lot of like very genuine curiosity for how people started their businesses, how they maintain their lifestyles, and if there is a way to untangle worth value from money while also still acknowledging that like someone's paying, whether it's you, whether it's your family, whether it whoever it is. But there's just so much to it. And I feel like the more I know, the better. The more I understand everyone's different money circumstances, the way they grew up with it or without it, around it, however, the better informed I can be. So we're going to get into our own full disclosure.
Full disclosure. The first one.
Yeah. Our first full disclosure question is, how much money do you make?
This is like, oh, I mean, it really varies, especially in the work that I'm doing now as a health coach. I'm kind of just getting started. I've been doing this for like 4 months. And full disclosure, selling is not my strong suit. I've never loved doing it. So it varies. I happen to be on unemployment, but I get like $370 a week from unemployment right now. And then I would say from my health coaching, it depends. I didn't sign a client last month, so $0. But this month I signed a client, so almost $3,000. It just depends. It really depends. And I'm not in the safest space financially, except that I live with my mom. I don't pay any bills. I'm pretty comfortable. All I really have to do is pay for a few things. So I am like safe, but if I wanted to make this my full-time job, I think I'd have to hustle a lot more. Let's just say that.
I'm in a similar boat. I was laid off in April. So before April, I was working a full time corporate job with salary and benefits. And now I am not working that due to COVID. So I'm currently on unemployment. I get payments every 2 weeks of $810. Aside from that, I have been pivoting, as they say, to making what was kind of my side thing, my full time thing, which I feel really excited about on the one hand. But am I making enough money that could support me? Absolutely not. I have a couple sessions a week and I am making a few $100s a month from that. So that's what I'm making right now.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, if you're in the same boat, you're not alone.
We feel you.
So, for the services that you have created yourself, what you are offering, what is your pricing and how did you decide on it?
So, in general for my coaching. I have a 90-day, 3-month coaching immersion that is like full blown. You get 12 sessions, a session a week, and you get me like full time. Like I am here to support your health and growth. And that price is $2,777 for the 3 months. We can obviously put in the show notes what our offerings actually include. But the way that I arrived in it, I did a health coaching accreditation program, a year-long program with IIN, or Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And I started from their business suggestion. They had told me that if you are still enrolled in school, you can charge $100 an hour for your services, or $100 for a 50-minute session. And then if you're out of school, you can charge $200 for a 50-minute session. I hired a business coach, and the way that my business coach spoke to me is kind of break down what you think, what the amount of time that you invest in each client, which for me is about 3 hours a week, and then look at what you would feel comfortable having an hourly rate as, and like, does that feel good to you? And also look at the expenses that you have in your life, and like see if having a certain amount of clients, the goal amount of clients that you'd like per week at that price, would be supportive of like the life that you want to live. So a lot of things came into account. I offer everything on sliding scale, and I offer everything on a skill trade basis or on a needs basis. So even if you have $0, we can do skill trade. And that's, if you're a Reiki healer and you want to offer me Reiki in exchange for my services, that's fine with me too. And I do this because I want to divest from the capitalist model. I want to offer and make my offerings available to everyone who seeks healing. But there's a lot of ways that we can come at this. And I'm still figuring it out myself. And I'm not quite sure if it will work, but I'm just doing it because it's what feels right to me. And I think that's the ultimate goal. When I decide my pricing, I'm like, it has to feel good.
Yeah, definitely. My pricing is pretty simple. I don't have a ton of offerings right now. I'm only offering tarot sessions. So I have $50 for an hour, $30 for 30 minutes, $15 for 3 cards. And kind of similarly to you, I have a pay what you need sort of option that allows us to build the session together. And then I also have trade based offerings that you let me know what you want to trade and we work it out. And I definitely decided on my pricing by looking at what other people were charging for services, especially like other tarot readers I've learned from or taking classes from. I saw what they were offering and just set my prices lower than that because I felt like, especially at the time I first set my prices, like I felt so new to it. I felt like, okay, I'm just getting started. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to leave some room to grow. And as I learned, I felt like I would adjust my prices, but I really haven't since I first put them up. And I also set my prices at a time when I was still working a full time job. So it was kind of like a side thing I was doing. But as I am now considering that, like, whoa, this actually could be my full time thing, which is definitely what I always wanted, I'm sort of being like, maybe this needs adjusting. Maybe these prices need to change to now, you know, make that move for this to be the job that I'm doing. So, but that's what they are for now. And that's how I decided.
I think you can charge way more for your services. Every time I pay you for a reading, I'm like, damn, that was a steal. And now you give me free readings, and I'm like, damn, I'm literally just, it's highway robbery.
I do. It's hard. I think that this is probably something we could talk to tons of healers and readers about. Is just like it's really hard sometimes to charge for things, especially when you're just kind of like happy that someone believes it's real.
Yes.
When
Oh
you're
my
just like, you're
gosh.
so grateful that someone just sees the value in it, period. It feels, you're like, how do I even begin to charge for this? Like, I'm just
Yeah.
happy you think this is a legitimate way to heal.
Wow.
So,
Feels.
yeah. Okay. Next question. What are your spending habits and what is your biggest expense?
Ooh. Ooh. My spending habits are bitches up in the grocery store too often. My bills, like, I don't have a lot of bills. I feel very grateful. I live with my mom right now. I don't pay rent. I don't pay utilities. I'm in a really cush spot when it comes to that. I live in Orange County. I live 10 minutes from the beach. Things are fucking great. Granted, I live with my mom and I'm 30, but never mind that. I grocery shop a lot. I buy everything organic. I buy a lot of healthy food, and I try not to buy packaged goods, and it kind of racks up, like a lot of like adaptogens and really expensive expensive health food products and supplements. But yeah, I think most of my expenses go towards my groceries unless you're counting my student loan bill, which kind of equates out to my groceries, and that's pretty much the bulk of my expenses. Then I have some like lightweight like entertainment expenses. I pay for Disney Plus and Spotify, and then there's a couple work related expenses like subscriptions to photo editing and content building and that kind of stuff. And that's pretty much all of my expenses. I am not a very, I don't want to call it high maintenance because it's normal to be this way, but I'm just like, I don't spend money on beauty products. I don't spend money on makeup. I wear lotion, brush my teeth with toothpaste. I use floss. And then like, oh, that's like maybe deodorant every 3 months. But like I just like I don't get my nails done. I don't buy new clothes. I don't buy new shoes. Like I have like one pair of shoes and I wear them until the bottoms literally fall out. And then I'm like, oh, I guess it's time to get a new pair of shoes. Like that's just like I'm not I'm low maintenance. So
Yeah, my spending stuff is definitely the grand majority of my money goes to paying for rent. I live in an apartment in Los Angeles, so that is what it is. I chose to live here, and that's that. Um, I have my car payment, I have my car insurance, I have my cell phone bill, my gas, electric, and internet, all of those sorts of just reoccurring life costs in this modern world. But my biggest, not biggest, like I definitely don't spend a ton of money on it, but kind of the like where my money goes when it doesn't go to bills is definitely like decorations for my house. Like I love to buy uh, my house has rugs, I have stuff hanging on the walls, like I love my couch. It's making my home feel like a cozy space is definitely where I spend when I'm not spending just to live in it. So
oh my gosh, I should be actually honest. Since quarantine hit, the majority of my money that I've spent this year has been on self development and coaching, either
mm,
courses, certifications, programs, coaching. Like, I have spent so much money investing in myself. And I put that in air quotes because, I hate the like accusatory, like, you have to invest in yourself. But for me, it just felt right. And I feel like I've experienced a lot of growth and I really appreciate that. But like, it has been a lot of money. I can't even sugarcoat it, cover it up. Like, I've spent a lot of money getting people to tell me how to live my life.
yeah.
But it works for me. And I'm happy that I've spent the money. I don't regret a dollar.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great lead into our next question, which is what's your favorite thing you've spent money on recently that's like brought joy to your life?
I just invested in another coach, but she's a complete mindfulness, consciousness coach, like straight up so different from any of the coaching that I've ever experienced. And I had my first session this week, and then she sent me my homework for the week. And I was like, holy shit, I'm about to blast off. Like, you might not find me on earth next week. So I'm really excited about it. I think I've had coaching from a much more like masculine.
Mm,
It's been masculine energy, and it's a lot of business coaching and kind of telling me how to organize my life, which I needed. It was at a time when I felt so ungrounded and I needed people to reel me back in. And now I'm kind of like here on earth and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? So I feel like my coach now is really going to bring me back out into the other dimension where I belong, where I feel most at home. And I feel like kind of the rigidity of capitalism and society has just been kind of like keeping me in a box.
mm,
And I feel like what I just invested in is an opportunity to really remove myself from the box, from the systems, from the jail that I've put myself in trying to like fit into society. So I'm excited. I'm like, it's been 1 week and I already feel just huge shifts in my consciousness. I'm like, I felt excited for the homework that she gave me. I was like, this is about to be so fun. And it's like intense, like hour-long practices. And I know it's about to be crazy.
yeah. Do you want to say how much that was?
Oh, yes, I will. I think it was $1,297. It's a 6-week program. Kind of pricey, but I don't think so at all. One session, I paid an initial session with her just to see what her work was like. It was $77. And I was like, holy shit. I'd pay thousands of dollars to do this for a couple months. So there it is. I paid the amount of a computer to, better myself and my consciousness, and I feel great about it.
I love that. Mine's kind of similar. My favorite thing that I've spent money on recently is my Reiki attunements, which is something that I'm hoping to add on to my services. So I felt like I wanted to be able to offer, in addition to tarot, Reiki healing. So I spent a good chunk of money getting attuned for Reiki 1, 2, and Master Teacher, which means that I will be able to attune people. And additionally, I signed up for a year-long Reiki apprenticeship. So that's kind of what I've been working on the last couple of months, is meeting with my Reiki teacher, getting attunements, learning, studying, practicing, and all in for my 1, 2 Master Teacher and the year of apprenticeship, grand total of $1,500. So big cost, but I feel same as you. I feel like it has been worth every penny, and I haven't even started the apprenticeship yet, and I am just like, I can't wait to do it. I truly feel like it's already changed me to just be learning and practicing, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to bring this into my sessions. So yeah, that's full disclosure.
Full disclosure. That was, ooh,
Yeah.
I feel lighter. It's
Yeah.
all on the table now.
Yeah. And I hope that we can just keep having these kinds of conversations. And I know that I wish everyone could just tell us exact dollar amounts of everything all the time, but you know, I get why we can't. And as open as we can be is what I hope to be in this space.
Yes, I'm ready for this. I feel like when you first told me that you wanted to ask about money, I was like, and then I was like, oh, that is so capitalism being put on me, acting like it's not appropriate to ask about money, just so that the people who are making light years more money than us don't have to reveal to us the fact that they're doing like not that much more but making so much more than us. So I love this, and I'm glad that you forced me to do this. Like, I literally cried before the episode. I was like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to talk about money, but then I was like, no, this is going to heal the masses. We need to talk about this.
Yeah, it feels good.
It feels good. I think we should have a money mindset coach on this.
Yeah. Let us know if you're a money mindset coach and if you want to scream lack mindset at me.
I think they'll really scream. I'm screaming. I'm not screaming lack mindset, but I'm screaming like your services are really bomb. That's what I'm screaming. So if you want
Thank
to up the
you.
price, just up it. I think it would be completely fine.
Thanks.
You know what I'm hoping?
Huh.
I'm hoping that like just like getting this off our chests just like calls in more money into our lives, and
For
not
sure.
abundance, money. Because I
Yeah.
am here to talk about them differently. I'm calling money
Yeah.
into my life, but I'm also calling abundance into my life. And they are separate things that I'm calling in.
Definitely. I
I think I
think
did make peace with my money story by having this conversation.
that's amazing.
I lied yesterday on Instagram, and I was like, I'm not really that tripped up over my money story anymore. And then as soon as we had this conversation this morning, I was like, holy shit, I am a victim of money.
Oh,
But I mean, not quite a victim, but like the like toxic relationship, the
yeah.
toxic boyfriend, the booty call at 2 a.m. on Saturday.
Right. That's what I think. I think like the last thing I wanted to touch on before we like really wrap up. Also, if anyone has questions about what we make, save, or spend, like shout out. I'll tell you every bit of money I ever made at every job I ever had.
Yeah, I
If you're
would.
looking
I
just
would.
if you're like looking for comparison and want to know like, so yeah, what did you get paid, or you want to know about like what it costs to run a yoga studio and who makes what, I'm happy to tell you. I think that that's like, I hope we can really create a space with this podcast where like if we have a coach on, or we have an astrologer, we have someone on, like, you know how they came to charge for that service. And also then when you go to charge for your services, or you're trying to figure out like, is this salary the right amount? Like, I hope that we're able to provide just a plethora of resources of people for you to ask, like, does this amount of money seem right for this thing? So yeah, we're just trying to open the floor for that.
Yeah.
We know money is super hard to talk about.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah. And the last, I'm going to get us uncomfortable just one more time.
Do it.
I think it is fair to say, and I really want to acknowledge in this conversation, that we get to have this conversation about money from both of us being in a space right now where we have a roof over our heads, we have food on the table, we're talking about it, really knowing that like we're okay, we have enough. And I know that that's not the case for everybody. And I think just like we do spiritual bypassing, I think sometimes when we talk about money in terms of wellness, there is this sort of bypassing that happens where we say like, yeah, no, like your worth can't be tied to an amount of money. And I think that that is true, but I don't want to bypass anyone's experience of just being like, yes, but I do need a certain dollar amount to pay my bills. And like, yeah, I just wanted to say that. I really don't want to bypass anyone's experience with money and finance and how that is tied up in your life, because it's a complicated thing. And I think that that happens a lot when we talk about abundance and we talk about even lack mindset. Like I think that it's really easy to just bypass someone's actual real life situation that they're going through. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
And that's that.
I guess that's money. Done. That's money. Yeah. We're definitely going to be talking more about money. I know that we like barely skimmed the surface today. We could have talked about healthcare. We could have talked about housing. Could have talked about taxes. So we've really just, I wouldn't even say like tip of the iceberg. There's barely. So much we could talk about.
We're just like on like one little crest of the iceberg.
Oh, it's tiny, tiny. So yeah, we really hope to talk to all of our guests about money, their experiences with it. And we also, like, when I put out the call for just normal people, like, I would love to have someone on who just wants to share their money experience. So if that is you, let us know. We'd love to talk to you about that and just kind of like keep the conversation flowing.
Yeah. And I'm kind of just going to pledge to like constantly update people about what's going on in my money world. You kind of inspired me. Now I'm going to start saving. I hope my mom doesn't listen to this. Honestly, like, everybody's probably praying for me, like, what? She's 30. But this is why I've pledged to like not have kids. So like everything's fine when I'm just dealing with myself. You know what I mean? I'd be a little more worried about my mentality if I like had a family to take care of, but I don't.
That's that. So that's where we are.
That's where we're at.
This is where we are today with our money, what we spend and what we save and all that. So, questions, comments, concerns, throw it at us. If you think that this was amazing, let us know. If you thought that it was terrible, let us know. We're all ears as always. If you're an economist, let us know.
They're probably like, these girls are just doing damage.
Yeah, I'm actually positive.
Doing harm.
Yeah, I'm certain that there's not a single economist who listens to our podcast. But I mean, shout out. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I mean, come on. I went to University of Pennsylvania. Pretty much everyone I went to school with is doing some weird shit in the economy.
I mean,
I don't know.
My ex definitely majored in economics, but highly doubt he's listening to this podcast. If you are, though, let me know. So right. I'm curious.
I just feel like it's so funny because I'm on like a cross sector of like, you know, the people I work with in the wellness world now, and we're just like free floating and like, you know, like trading services for Reiki. And then everyone I went to college with is making like $300,000 a year, and like and they all graduated from law school like 5 years ago, and now they're like, you know, flying to Bora Bora for the weekend to have like a fun vacation with their fiance, and I'm like, ugh.
I mean, conversation for another pod.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Fully.
Money Story is going to keep coming back.
Yes, it will. It's
because that is about the people.
Yeah.
Money is a conversation for the people, for sure.
Yeah. And we know that like money is really like fucked and just like totally evil and corrupt a lot of the time. But we also know that it can bring ease, and sometimes the things that bring us a lot of pleasure do cost money, and there's no shame in that. So that's all we're getting at.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're so worthy and so loved, and we see you and we feel you. And whatever your money journey is, we're here for the ride.
Yeah.
We'll keep you posted on our own rides. I hope I get to report back and I'm like, okay, so now we are both making money from the podcast.
I hope I get to report back and I'm just like, oh my God, I have so much money. I don't know what to do with it. Have some. And then I'll just like hand some money out.
Oh my gosh, what a dream, truly.
I know. That's
truly,
the dream.
truly a dream. Okay. Let's do what's the vibe?
What is the vibe, Taylor?
My vibe this week is, this should come as no surprise to anyone because I've posted about it so many times. I have not stopped obsessing over the dance scene in A Knight's Tale. I fully posted a video of it just like on the main feed of my Instagram. And I'm like tearing up right now just thinking about it. I miss dancing with people so much. And I know that like the horrible shit has happened in quarantine, and that's like not something to even like complain about at all. But what I would give to be in a room full of people with just some like bass in the speakers, sweating my ass off, dancing, arms in the air, bodies around me. I cannot wait for that moment.
I miss that so much.
When I was watching that scene, and I love it. I mean, I'm like such a sucker for a choreographed dance. It's literally my dream that people just, I mean, not like flash mob style, but just, you know, if it were to happen that naturally.
Yeah.
That everyone would just like gather in a space and then just like do a little choreographed dance and then just like totally free dance. And that's what happens in the movie. And there's like Heath Ledger is just I just can't even. His face, it's perfect, and just the whole movie's so good. But that scene,
I need to watch that movie. When you posted about that, I was like,
if you haven't watched the dance scene in A Knight's Tale, just go Google A Knight's Tale dance, and you're gonna be so glad you did. It's so good.
Oh my God, I just hit my tooth on the mic. That was so dorky.
So that's my vibe. I'm desperate to dance with a group of people and feel human connection and sweat from a stranger.
Oh my gosh. You know what I've been doing a lot of? I've been watching Netflix movies for teenagers and then Shazamming the songs. And now I have a whole playlist of like sad songs from teenager movies.
And
I feel incredible. Like and I'm gonna throw out an artist who I discovered watching All the Bright Places, which was like tearjerker and a half. But have you ever heard of Babe Heaven?
No.
Love her. No idea who she is. Had never heard of her before. I watched that teenage movie. Amazing. But there was a song called November by Babe Heaven, and I was like, this is so good. And so now I love every song that she's ever made. And that's kind of the vibe right now.
I love that. I feel like finding like a really good song that's like a new song is a great feeling. I don't know if it's new. No, but it's like it's new to you. It's like it's new to me. It's new to your like realm. Yeah. When you have like when you just have like a new song that you're really into, it's such a good feeling.
And I love it when it's like not like a radio song, like it's just like a new, like, ooh, like you like feel like you've discovered something, Yeah. Wow. Okay. We should probably, with that, we should make our leave. It's been another 2 hours talking about Betty stories. This one was big.
Let us know what you think. Let us know how you feel.
Leave us a 5-star review.
Yes, please leave us a 5-star review. We will send you a remedy revealed. It'll be cute. It doesn't cost any money. It's free. It is the exchange of your 5 stars for our remedies revealed PDF.
An energy exchange.
So yeah, but let us know how you think, how you feel. We love you so much.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.